On today's video, I'd like to do a kind of review on EMP Shield, my experience with purchasing with them. I called over the phone, and how I decided to use the two EMP shields that I purchased. So the first one I'm going to go over is the generator version, which is the same as the vehicle version. We have a Generac 22 kilowatt whole home standby generator. And then for the whole home, I'll show how that's hooked up and why I hooked it up the way it did. As I've stated in a previous video, we're in East Texas and we had some severe electrical storms several weeks ago. And those electrical storms fried our computer on our Generac standby generator. It fried the computer board for our air handler unit inside. And all that was done, even though we have a whole home surge protector that is at the grid feed to our Generac transfer switch that then feeds into the house. And when we had everything go down, as I said in the previous video, we've got everything back up now. It took a few weeks to get all the parts and stuff in. And when it happened, the first thing, once we got the generator up and going and we can have, the refrigerator and other stuff working, one thing that I wanted to focus on was making sure we had ample surge protection. I thought that the whole home surge protector would be enough. One of the theories that I'm going with, because nothing in the house was fried, so it might have done its job, aside from the computer and the generator and the air handler computer board. So the furnace we have is propane and the generator is propane. The best thing I can think of is that there was a ground strike. There's a large tree that was down on our property and no other significant major damage. And based on what we talked to everyone else around here, is that the electrical storm was really bad. It was not dark from midnight to about 3 or 4 a.m. the day of the storm. And my guess is that we had a lightning strike near the ground, which is where our large tree probably went down, and that it might have gone through the copper, and then that might have surged through the generator and the air handler. That could be completely wrong, but everything else not being damaged, and then what was damaged, that seems to be the only metal component that could have connected the two things. So I called EMP Shield because I was just curious at first. I called Generac and talked to them, and then I called EMP Shield because they've just always had the best products from all the reviewers that I've seen. And they always had the best customer service, again, from the reviewers that I saw. And I called EMP Shield, and when I talked to them at first, I said everything that kind of, was an issue. And I spoke to someone named Amy, and Amy was extremely helpful. I had lots of questions. I called at least twice, I think, and she was very aware of the products and all the specific details and the products. I'd already thought about getting the generator or vehicle EMP Shield and the whole home, and after talking to her and her knowledge, that just solidified the decision I'd already made. And I was going to wait because they are pretty pricey, but just with the way the repair and the service for those other two components were going to be, I decided to go ahead and get both of those and get those installed by the time that the air conditioner parts were in. So that way, when that was done, there was no other electrical need having to happen. And that way I knew everything was just going to work once the air conditioning person left. And I would just want to say again how thankful I am to Amy at EMP Shield. She was just really helpful. Because as you can imagine, it was expensive, not just for the EMP Shield, but to get those other components fixed. The generator on the computer, or the computer on the generator, was around $800. All the AC work we had done to get fixed was around $1,500, and it was just a lot. And so she was just very helpful, and I know some of the comments that I got from someone here that was working on some of our stuff was, it's not going to do anything, it's just a box. And my answer to that was, you know, they've done, EMP Shield has done a lot of testing and it's documented. And I view this as I do with food storage and, you know, 401ks and precious metal savings, those kind of things, and firearms that old firearms for, you know, for a way to save over time and just diversifying. So I'm counting this as an insurance policy, you know, and I might not ever need it, and I hope it does work. If it does, it's just something that brings a little bit of peace of mind. And I'm going to go over now and show how I put those in, like I said in the kind of the intro. And again, before I show that, their documentation does recommend a certified licensed electrician, so know that going forward. And then I'll show you now what I did for the generator and what I did for our whole home install. This is the standby generator we have. So it's a Guardian 22 kilowatt. And when you open it, on this side over here, there's 2 screws, and this gets you to your battery. So I'm gonna unscrew those and then show you what's after that. All right, so I've undone these screws, and then this panel lifts off. There are 2 set kind of points that then go into here. And so this is what I did. I wanted enough space so that this panel can then sit along here. And I ran the negative to negative, and I ran the positive to positive, and then the ground into the frame, I ran that into here. Then on this, they've got a Velcro. So this is the gap on the Velcro, which is good. But then I also wanted to go and screw down to make sure it was nice and solid. I started with this corner, got it snug, and then kind of added these, so I kind of leveled it out. And then if you can see, if that's going to show up, the light is on, showing that it's on. On this vehicle one, there is a 20 amp, if I can get it to focus, there's a 20 amp fuse connection on the red, on the hot. And then to clean this up, I made sure to go through and zip tie these to the handle so they're out of the way, and then zip tie this out of the way. And that way this is separate, so when the lid goes back, or when the side goes back on here and here, it'll have a gap here, so it's not rubbing on any of this stuff. Then to put it back on, I'm just going to line up these tabs that are there. And then just double checking they're on, and then just pushing this on, and then these will screw in, and then this side will be secure. For the whole home, we've got our panel here, and then I've got the EMP Shield here, and then if you can see, it's got both green lights on. I've anchored it with concrete screws into the brick, and then made sure it was as close to level as I could get it. And then your leads come into here. I wrap them in friction tape just to give this some abrasion resistance all the way to the box and then up and in. And then on the inside, we've got our AC double breaker here. And I wanted to put the surge protector on that so that if we had another surge, the AC condenser compressor would be protected. And then I wanted to make sure that this was protected. We have a whole home on the transfer switch that's over here. And then that gives us a couple of spots of redundancy for surge protection. So I'm going to take this off and then show you how I connected that. So what I did is I've run up, I've put some waterproofing and protection on here. That's where this goes. And then as you can see, the friction tape comes up well into here for protection on the wire. Then I've got these two that are going into the bus bar, into the ground bar or neutral bar. And then these are the two that come up and go into the main breaker. So if you look back, overview, they come in, they go up. I've got my ground and neutral up here. And then I've got my black and red coming down here into this double breaker. That's how I installed those two EMP shields on the generator in the house. Again, based on the EMP shield recommendations, you have a licensed electrician to install those things. Install was really easy. I don't think it could have been easier. You just undo some screws and put some stuff on and put it back together. And if the green lights are on, then it's hooked up. So that seems pretty easy. And again, I'm really hoping, because storms just seem to keep getting worse over the years. You know, we had our big February 2021 ice storm that covered Texas, and it was a mess everywhere. Power out for the whole state in some places, you know, numerous counties. Gas wasn't pumping, like natural gas to houses and stuff, because lines were frozen, pump stations were frozen, and those are frozen to the grid. So those, all the way to this electrical storm that came through that had enough force, in one of the articles I read, that had hurricane force winds at a substation, which is what kind of started this whole grid down area where we were, in addition to transformers blowing and trees down and those kind of things. Thank you for watching. I, again, count this as kind of an insurance policy. I hope I never need it, but if I do, they're there. I just want to thank Amy again at EMP Shield for being so helpful with everything. I've been impressed lately by the amount of customer service I've been getting from companies where you do pay more for stuff, but you're obviously paying for that customer service. And it's just really nice to see. The next thing I'm going to work on is probably next year, when Nikki and I get a little bit of extra saved up. We're going to look at getting maybe one or two of those EMP shields for the volunteer fire department I'm on, and just as a, you know, never hurts to have extra protection again for insurance, because those engines or brush trucks or whatever it is you're running usually are plugged into shore power to keep the batteries up, to keep the, you know, air compressor charged, like all those kind of things, to keep flashlights charged and whatever else might be, radios or whatever else might be in there. And if the storm was this bad to fry this stuff, I think it's really important to have something like that on your emergency vehicles. So that's our next step. It'll be, again, a year, because again, these cost so much, and that's going to be just one of those donations that we're hopefully going to give to the fire department here. And thank you for watching. I hope if this is something you're looking at, that you just call them and talk to them, and just know they're easy to talk to, and they're very knowledgeable. They're not just a voice on the phone. Thank you for watching.